Gary, welcome to the demo of CloudLock. CloudLock is a pure cloud-native platform. It can go fully functional in minutes at any scale. So I want to show you the different use cases today. Focus on three different areas. So the first one is, just imagine what happens in most organizations is that we have a relatively good visibility and control on everything on-prem. But however, when nowadays with the cloud adoption and people working remote, we're getting very little visibility into what users are actually doing on the as a service environment. So how do we prevent attackers from compromising cloud accounts? And how do we make sure data breach is not overlooked? So, one example that I can show here is about this use case. So this user is Shelly Smith. She's probably working offsite, and she's doing two-factor authentication through Okta, and he triggered this policy, which is offsite activity. So let's take a look at what is involved there. So basically, this alerts any activity performed outside of the company sites, and it's an alert severity, and the detection criteria is platform, countries, and users, and the action is to add this user to a specific group. So let's take a look at the detection criteria. This is specifically applied to Okta, but we can apply to all platforms as well, and select different platforms. And as to countries, so we have added three different trusted countries: Israel, United Kingdom, and States. So basically, outside of these countries, will probably trigger alerts. And events, we're monitoring all different events, but we can also specify what events we're interested in, probably everything related to Okta in this case. And velocity is a very interesting feature. It basically enables us to see what location this user is and how fast it traveled, to help us make sense out of whether this could be a attack that's imitating the user from a different location. So we can define velocity of the user. If it's car travel, it's 100 miles maximum, and by plane would be probably 800. So anything outside of this velocity, it could be somebody else that's impersonating this user. And as to users, we can, so right now we're applying this to a specific user, but we can also define user lists or groups, or we can even do organization units. And we can also, if we select groups or not, we can exclude certain users from there as well. And we can define trusted IPs or risky IPs, for things like, whether it's a VPN or not. So let's go back to the policy, and let's quickly take a look at the actions. So there are many actions that we can define when this is triggered. So right now what we're seeing is we're assigning this user to a group, which is called risky users. And we can also do other activities like send emails, and we can integrate with ServiceNow, and also WebEx Teams. We can send a message or notify admin on WebEx Teams. So in this case, let me show you what we can do with emails. We can send a notification to admin, to alert them, or we can send an email to user, to let her know that somebody is probably impersonating her. So this is the first use case. And another use case I want to quickly show is, to mainly talk about data breach. So, IT might not have visibility into these SaaS-based services that, users are either using their personal or company-approved app to share files. And we want to be able to see what they are sharing, and whether there's potential content breach. So in this case, let's take a look at one example here. Jimmy Jones, he has triggered this publicly shared policy, and let's take a look at what he did there. And this is specifically on Box. So let's look at the rule there. So basically, it's the severity is warning, and the criteria is exposure on platform, and the response action is revoke the file share on Box. So how it's defined, this is applied specifically to Box, and we can define file type. In this case, we're matching all different file types. We can also specify specific file types, and file size. We can define minimum or maximum file size for use cases like bandwidth control if it's an approved app, and we can also look at ownership. So in this case, we're applying to all users, but we can again apply to groups and OUs and whatnot. And exposure is basically, we have a very granular control on whether this user is sharing internal. That might be okay, because this is not exposing to public other users outside of the organization. But if the user is sharing to an external user, or sharing through a public link, then this is sharing publicly. So that's why it's triggering this policy. So and another use case I want to quickly show you is with cloud native apps. We don't usually have an efficient way to determine which app can be trusted and which is risky. So for some of the sometimes users can easily give third-party apps access through, let's say, OAuth, so without even knowing what they have just exposed, right? So it could be a lot of very important access that they're giving without even knowing. In this case, this user Carl has allowed an app called Kaizena to have access to Office 365. So this triggers the policy of risky access. So basically, it's a warning, and whenever user authorize an access scope that present potential security risks, triggers this rule. And this is risky. The response is application firewall to classify the app. So let's take a look at the rule here. So basically, this access scope that we had, so the user had selected, includes a lot of access. Let's see, full data access to Office 365, read and write user profiles, and read and write all the notes, and all the inboxes, and full access to all the sites, and manage all the sites, and read and write list of site collections and user profiles and all that. And this is way more privileged to do harm. And as well as user can manage user activities and read and write user profiles, and access as the user, and access the AD, and write directory data. So so that's why it's very risky to give access to an untrusted app this kind of access. So these are the 3 quick examples I want to show you. And as you can see, that CloudLock can seamlessly protect users' data and applications, and help organizations accelerate cloud adoption, and enforce compliance management, and achieve brand protection. Hope you find it helpful, and thank you so much.